So this game here, I mean, clearly it's an attempt at making the most, I suppose, of a situation with regards to, you know, a single map and such, which obviously turns out to be the world map at this point. I mean, it's always, I guess, different options and everything. And as much as I'm not sure why people always, but not always, actually the minority of games get encrypted, but some do, and it's annoying to be honest, because it's interesting to see how something is done. But yeah, this one was, so the only thing available is the events, which I'm assuming can be encrypted, I suppose. I mean, so far all the encrypted games I've seen still have events, just on a blank map. But yeah, I know the events though that I saw were interesting. I think it sort of confirms, yeah, something that I was wondering about with regards to how events can be compressed, a single thing. It's remarkable. There's I think that's pretty much only a single event, just a single event. So on a technical level, this isn't too bad. I mean, it's interesting certainly how it was done, from holistic sort of point of view, an enjoyment point of view. That's another method, isn't it? It's not so much how maps could be done. I mean, sure enough, if I guess a game could be done with a single event, I mean, you still restricted to a single map, I suppose, in this instance. Although, artificial restrictions are always idiotic in my opinion. But anyway, the point is, yeah, if indeed one can do so much with a single event, then, well, theoretically, I guess you could keep on going on that single page forever, I suppose. But no, that's the thing, isn't it? Then it becomes boring, and that's the thing then, right? So that's the question: is it boring? I saw a few comments there on this page, and I think generally, I haven't read everything, but generally people seem to be positive about it. Personally, I'm not entirely sure. Because it has the skeletal structure of most RPGs, most Final Fantasies, getting different elements, etc. But as much as even that is fairly stereotypical. Oh, great, we're going to get to the fire element, and water, At least there's some sort of story though to it. Like, there's still a skeletal sort of story here, sure. Very much so, skeletal. If you could do so much with a single event, why not really make a comprehensive story? I mean, it was possible, but clearly more was put into, more focus was put into the mechanics, the battles. Clearly, the battles are the most focused on, even though this is the thing, right? They're just boring. I mean, just constantly, right? It's a grind fest. That's pretty much it, right? I mean, I spent hours just battling. I honestly couldn't do it without listening to something, right? I mean, it's too boring to just battle there for hours. I mean, personally, I don't enjoy battles. When it comes to though, I mean, something like like most RPGs have, they have a story, and then you sort of, like in Final Fantasy VIII, they big up this sorceress, she takes over whole god, and then you battle her. or later on, sorcerers, just time compresses. And in comparison, this Dark Lord was supposed to what? Supposedly made a game. Oh, great! Wow, we get some sort of meta fiction. That's usually interesting. I'm not saying it's not interesting, but there's very little of it. I mean, very little. So much focus was put into the battles. If there was even like half as much put into the story, it could be interesting. As it is, it's not. I mean, there's like, I don't know, I'm not sure if there's even like 4 times as many battles as there is sort of narrative. I think there might be more. I mean, just constant. Do you really need, like, you're through with one battle, there's another one straight immediately after it. Most dungeons have that much, but then some which have 3. And some have 4. Like, come on, 4. I already dislike pretty much the so-called boss rushes, but this, well, to be fair, there are some games that have absolutely nothing but that. I mean, they still have some sort of semblance of a few lines, really, pretty much. You can't really call it a narrative. So this had a bit more at least, but not really much more. So might have been slightly better than those so-called, but not really. I mean, much more interesting in my opinion. Really, just it's very skeletal. Like Final Fantasy 1 is already bare bones as an example. But even Final Fantasy 1 has much more of a narrative. Really, I think I haven't played it in many years, so might be wrong. I have some different memories of it that might have been over written, because memory works like how this. Anyway, the thing is, I don't know. It's not like games have anything to do with the time they're made in. But Final Fantasy 1 was made decades ago. Now, why is it? I mean, sure, ultimately, people do games however they want. But I guess it doesn't necessarily exclusively depend on the year a game was made in. Even though with a certain series like Final Fantasy, it does sort of begin from a game that doesn't really have that much plot in comparison to the games that preceded. So Final Fantasy 1 has much less plot than Final Fantasy 10, right? Final Fantasy 10 is absolutely full of narrative. So yeah, I personally prefer narrative. I don't know why people seem to think, oh great, let's just spend hours just mind-numbingly battle. Ooh, exciting. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's one thing, if you're battling Biggs and whatever the other guy was called, from Final Fantasy, those couple of clumsy guys who just come in along somehow, manifest themselves differently every game, for some reason. There's soldiers in Final Fantasy 8, there are, I think, Shinra workers in Final Fantasy 7. They have a story behind them. I mean, even those two have more of a story than even the so-called Dark Lord had here. I mean, you need something more than what there was. That was so little. That's the problem. Primarily, I went through the game. I spent hours, but it's not more fulfilling, right? I noticed. I think someone played it again. Apparently, I wouldn't. I mean, I didn't enjoy it like that. Not like I play Final Fantasies again. Because they do have something that this doesn't have. Which is a I think a balance. I think that's the ideal RPG has a balance of plot and battles too. Although personally, I don't mind just plot. This had so little plot, and mostly an excuse for a plot. Really, I mean, I know it was supposed to just be on just a single map, but well, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not like, I mean, most people with this challenge seem to think, yeah, that yes, since they only have one map and 10 events, that they cannot do much, and indeed, with one event you can do a lot, but clearly the priority wasn't there for the narrative here, even though a lot was done with a single event. So technically, it was done. So there wasn't the same sort of thought process here. But I'm not entirely sure why narrative isn't prioritized, because it's really, really interesting. It makes a game interesting, really. And I mean, now having an item that reveals a bit more of the plot is sort of a possibly an interesting option, I guess, to consider, but it was too much, and I noticed that it used a variable to pinpoint exactly where the player was, but it was very specific. So it was on a specific square, on a specific tile, and yeah, I couldn't find one of them at least. So it was annoying. I'm just saying, because I mean, literally you're hiding the plot behind a few obscure tiles, and what makes it even more difficult is that the images are encrypted. So I couldn't really. I mean, I could see where it was on the map, what the coordinates were, but I couldn't see where it was, or within the image itself, within the map. I could still read what there was within the event itself, not so much within the game itself. I'm just saying, this World of Ruin had so little plot as it is, hiding a bit more of the plot, within. And as it happens, I couldn't find the one on the palm tree. I tried many palm trees. I just gave up in the end. I mean, I still, as I said, read what it had, but I just didn't read it within the game itself. I think it's kind of counterproductive. I mean, as I said, the game already had so little plot. What's the point of, So while it's sort of interesting, but I think an item such as that, which a bit weirdly mentions the internet. So I noticed someone was confused about it. They thought that it really used it. I'm not entirely sure if could you make a games are capable indeed of using probably are. You put a plugin or something. But I mean, yeah, that's a sort of a quick sort of thing to say. I suppose the point is though, the plot was effectively hidden, and it's not like it was necessary. Obviously, the game could still be completed there 100%, as I said. But if I didn't care about finding out where these were and they were optional, then less of a plot there is. And the only way I know that indeed the so-called Claude was somehow the creator of the world would have been as soon as the player faced the there were only a couple of lines. So I'm just saying, I mean, it just had so little narrative. That's the main problem, really. It also had a few typos, which is a bit strange. When I mean, it's one thing for if you have like a whole sort of just lots of pages, which yeah, it's sort of difficult to find those few. But there wasn't. I mean, sure, there was still more than the average, I suppose, game, but there was still like meta at the very beginning, for example, only had one T. I don't know. It's there were so few. I mean, there are only a few people. Like most RPGs have whole towns full of sprites that say something. This only had it could have been spell checked. Is all I'm saying. could have easily been spell checked. But anyway, so the narrative I think is the main thing that lacks